Real quick, before we get into the details of Myles Garrett's contract, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, ding that notification bell, so you can be notified when I upload. The NFL season is coming, fingers crossed, and if you want the best content available, and specifically the best Browns content available, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and be notified, because there's going to be a ton of content coming, NFL and Browns, and you're not going to want to miss a single bit of it. Now back to the video. So Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns have pretty much, it's not confirmed by the Browns itself, but it's been pretty much confirmed by everybody outside of it. Baker Mayfield already tweeted Myles Garrett congratulating him. Adam Schefter put out the tweet there, and as we all know, when Schefter puts out something usually about a contract, it's normally gonna happen eventually. So the details are that Myles Garrett's gonna get a 5-year extension, so this year plus, so 6 more seasons for Myles Garrett in brown and orange, 5-year, $125 million contract, $25 million average per year. We don't know what the cap hits are going to look like yet, so we don't know if this is something to where it's going to escalate up the line in guarantees, or it's going to be a big kind of cap hit at the back end of it, which for a guy like Myles Garrett, who's going to be 28, 29 by the end of this contract, it would make sense if there are some larger cap hits towards the end of this contract and some larger pay incentives towards the end of this contract, because Myles Garrett is just going to be worth a lot more, you would hope, when he's in his prime, which it's crazy to think about it. Myles Garrett ain't even touched his prime yet. He's just scratching the surface on his ability. Very athletic guy, very talented guy, very skilled pass rusher. One of the best in the NFL. And why is this significant? Why is the Browns signing him significant? One, this just doesn't happen all the time for the Cleveland Browns, unfortunately, right? When you look at first-round picks and guys who actually live up to that billing that you actually want to give the big money to, I can only think of 2 other guys, Joe Hayden and Joe Thomas. Joe Hayden was released towards the tail end of that contract. Joe Thomas is the only one who has gotten like extension after extension after extension, eventually retired as a Cleveland Brown. Of course, I'm talking about in the expansion era. But another distinction is that this deal Myles Garrett is getting is much richer than Joe Thomas or Joe Hayden ever seen. This is a $25 million year. This is a top-level deal. I believe Joe Thomas was a top-level left tackle deal at the time, but I think he took a little bit less, if I'm not correct. Myles Garrett isn't going to get as much as Khalil Mack does. Khalil Mack gets about $1 million more on average than Myles Garrett. So technically he did take a little bit less, but $25 million for Myles Garrett. And just to take a step back and look at the larger picture, it's really nice that we're at this point to where it kind of starts with the 2018 draft, right? Sure, you already traded Jabril Peppers. David Njoku looks to be on his way out. But there are some gems hidden in there after this year that you're going to want to lock up. Nick Chubb, somebody you're going to want to have the conversation about. Denzel Ward is obviously somebody you're going to want to have the conversation about. Baker Mayfield, if he plays well this year, you're going to want to have the conversation about. And it's just nice to have to worry about getting these guys their money after you drafted them, after so many years of drafting guys who you didn't care they got cut after year 3. So Myles Garrett getting this extension isn't just significant for this team and for Myles Garrett himself, but it's significant for the franchise in total, because it's a significant step towards the progress that they have been working towards for the last 3-4 years. Now, how does this help the Browns? How does signing Myles Garrett early, a year before you really had the pressure to do it, how does that help the Browns? One, obviously keeps the relationship between you and Myles Garrett pristine. I mean, even after how his 2019 season ended, for the Browns to come up here and offer him money that he is deserved, and money that he is worth, quite frankly, that's a goodwill movement from the Browns organization, and then from Myles Garrett to not have to reset the market. So for the Browns, you got a little bit of a discount here, because again, let's be clear here. Myles Garrett has the potential to be hands down one of the best defensive players in the NFL, if not the best defensive players. He's already a top 10 defensive player in the NFL, top 5 pass rusher. And usually when those guys are up for their contracts, they command record-breaking money. Myles Garrett did not command a record-breaking money. He got market-level money. He got his worth according to the current market, but he didn't reset the market, right? Because let's say Myles Garrett goes out here in 2020 and has like a 15 to 20 sack season this year and just balls out completely. Then you're talking about having to give Myles Garrett $30 million, resetting the market for pass rushers entirely and having to find a way to give him his money in a different deal. But by signing Myles Garrett before this season even starts, you kind of avoid that future from becoming a reality because Myles Garrett gets top-level money, but he doesn't have to reset the market, which is a huge win for the Cleveland Browns because if there's one player on this roster that can reset the market in crazy ways, it was Myles Garrett, and be able to get him at market value, that is very, very good for the Cleveland Browns. I can't stress that enough. Also, just think about it from a long-term perspective, just like we talked about with Patrick Mahomes. The cap might rise in a few years. Now, it's going to be determined on what happens this season and next season and how fast this whole pandemic situation clears off or stays around. But let's say things get relatively back to normal after this year and after this season, the cap is going to rise dramatically because there's going to be new TV money. This is why Patrick Mahomes' deal was kind of team-friendly at the end of the day. And salary caps are going to rise. And then all of a sudden, Myles Garrett's $25 million that he's making that's top level right now that might seem ridiculous to some. I don't understand how you come to that opinion unless you just don't like Myles Garrett. Then you look at a situation where in 3 years, you're paying Myles Garrett $25 million. But it's going to really feel like when the Browns are paying Joe Thomas like $11-12 million to be the best left tackle in the NFL. And if you remember, Joe Thomas's contract was never an inhibitor to the Browns' success. And I think the potential for Myles Garrett's contract to look like that is very high because I do think the cap's going to spike up again in numbers like what Patrick Mahomes has annually and what Myles Garrett is going to receive annually in that time period. Just not going to seem as high as they used to. So this is a good play for the Browns long term. I understand why Myles Garrett took this. In times like these, you want to get the certain thing. You want to get what's on the table for you, and he has earned it most certainly. And also, it's a goodwill thing. The Browns stood with him through everything that happened with Mason Rudolph. They never abandoned Myles Garrett or gave up on him like a lot of people wanted them to. They always stood by him, and I think Myles Garrett appreciates that. And this is kind of a goodwill showing here between him and the Browns. He's not taking a pay cut, but he's just accepting market value, which for a guy like Myles Garrett, it's kind of like taking a pay cut because let's be honest, this dude could be in a position if he didn't want to sign this contract where he could make $30 million a year if he just goes out and has the season that he's capable of. But also the biggest benefit to this is something that I don't think a lot of people are going to talk about, and it's that it just really sets the table for the Browns to be able to make decisions a lot easier. So what I mean by this is of all the players that are going to need contracts coming up in the Browns' immediate future, the one guy you knew you had to pay was Myles Garrett. Now that you have that out the way, you know what your cap situation is going to be for a fact. You don't have to guesstimate anymore, which means that you can now set your cap situation and build your cap situation around the contract of Myles Garrett, around what you're already paying for Odell and Jarvis, around all of these things, and determine what you have and don't have and budget your cap accordingly. This is a big piece in that. And the fact, again, that you're not having to give Myles Garrett market resetting money is huge for the Cleveland Browns. Now, the question has been asked if Myles Garrett deserves this money. Yes. Unless you don't watch football, I don't know how you come to that conclusion. Like, you can be a salty Steeler fan or be really appalled at the whole Mason Rudolph, Myles Garrett situation. I have said what I feel about that situation enough that I don't have to repeat it. But yes, obviously, yeah, this is one of the best defensive ends in the NFL. He is the cornerstone of your entire defense, and he is legitimately at times your entire defense. I mean, if you look at how this defensive line performed in Week 11 when Myles was there, and in Week 13 against the same exact Steelers team when he wasn't there, that's worth $25 million alone. And again, you got the anchor of your defense locked down for 5 years without having to reset the market. I can't stress enough how important that is, that you did not have to reset the market to sign Myles Garrett. This is an all NFL level player, a guy who makes an immediate impact to your defense, a guy who, when he's not on the field, it is completely obvious, a guy who changes games that he plays in. $25 million is a bargain for that level of player, quite honest. Because having a guy like Myles Garrett improves your defense to the point where you don't have to spend a ton of money at other places on the defense. You don't have to pay for the most expensive defensive ends or defensive tackles. You need solid pieces more than what the Browns have right now, but you can get away with paying mid-level guys to fill in some of these spots. Since you have Myles Garrett, you can get away with having more average pieces on the defensive line or in the front seven because you have Myles Garrett and he commands the attention of like 3 or 4 guys on the offense at a time. So now that the Browns have locked down Myles Garrett, what's next for the Browns, right? Now they're kind of in wait-and-see mode. They have to wait and see what happens with Denzel Ward. Is he going to have a bounce-back season? The same thing with Baker Mayfield. Is he going to have a bounce-back season? Are you going to extend him? How much will he be worth? How much is he going to be willing to take? Those kind of conversations are going to have to happen during the course of the 2020 season. And then you have the Chubb and Hunt combo, which it seems like both sides want to stay here, but money's going to be the biggest factor in that. And how worth it are they going to be? Both guys are really young backs, really talented backs, but people don't want to pay running backs. And I think right now it's starting to get to a ridiculous point to where running backs are going to start to be valued more because people are devaluing them so much. I heard somebody say that the Browns don't have the best starting 5 in the NFL because they have 2 good running backs and that running backs are just useless. And I'm not going to point out who it was, but this is somebody on national television. This wasn't some dude on Twitter who said this. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. I think we're taking the devaluation of running backs just a tad too far. And I think in the next few years, we're going to start to value them more and more as the devaluation starts to get to a point where it's ridiculous. But now the table's set for the Browns in order to get guys deals done, in order to make extensions, in order to be really thrifty around the cap. And remember, even now, after extending Myles Garrett, which won't kick in until next year, Browns still have the most cap space in the NFL. So a lot of flexibility for Andrew Berry, and hopefully he does what he was brought in to do and manages his cap situation, because as the years go on with this team, that's going to be more and more important. But let me know what you think of Myles Garrett's extension. Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's too much money? Let me know down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and hit that subscribe button. Ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.